Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Launch Code podcast. We're missing Evan Hafer today. It's just good old Baker and Matt over here hanging out. Really, and we have a very special guest with us as well, who we're excited to dive in and get some information out of. Why don't you make an intro, Baker?
Yeah, so today's guest is a young man by the name of Lorenzo Sartini, who I met a few years ago, and we have become friends over text messages of giant mule deer.
Yeah, basically.
And that our relationship, we met, sat in his office, talked about a bunch of stuff, and then like for the next 3 years, every time I crossed past a photo of a massive mule deer, I would text it to him and get an instantaneous response of usually, holy shit, mother of God, where was this? So Lorenzo owns a company called Go Hunt. Most of the guests we've recorded with this week that I've brought on are somehow involved in that because I'm trying to make my hobbies, my friends' hobbies, Matt and Evan. I'm trying to.
It's okay. We like the space, and it's cool to see the influential figures in the space and see the cool stuff that they're doing to kind of help out the environment, and then also show hunting's a lot more than just killing an animal. So,
yeah,
so
really
what is Go Hunt?
So GoHunt.com is just a complete online platform of basically how we describe it as the one-stop shop for anything Western hunting. So hunting in general, there's a lot of different verticals of it, and they're broke out into Western hunting, whitetail hunting, upland bird hunting, waterfowl hunting, and international hunting. And they're all vastly different, very, very different. The two biggest connections are probably Western hunting and international hunting because they're both that spot and stock, aspirational, climb to the top of the mountain, find a big animal, go after it, backpack style, living off your back, and then get it off the mountain and onto your dinner table. So ours is 100% Western big game hunting. So there's 14 states that qualify into that, and to make it simple, it's basically Colorado West, and it's lottery systems to get the tags. But with the lottery systems, it's loyalty points within the state. So every year that you buy into the draw system, you get an extra point. And there's this, innate math model that gets developed for each different state for, what your draw odds or what your chances of winning the lottery would be. And so we build proprietary systems that aggregate the data, information, all the stuff that a hunter would need to know or need to look into. So
give them like a
tag.
percentage, like, hey, this year since you didn't get pull tags, next year you have a 63% chance of winning the lottery.
So
that's
if you have
cool. 8
8 preference points in Colorado this year, you have a 30% chance of drawing the tag that you want, whatever unit, season, species it is that you're after. Well, if you have, the 9th point next year, then you're going to have a 80% chance of drawing the tag. So it's that compounding chance of drawing a tag every time you don't draw it. It's this loyalty system that these states have built in.
On Go Hunt, is that what you're doing? I would go on there and create an account, input like my tag data and all of that stuff, and then you guys aggregate it there and kind of give me feedback.
But we're also, it's a lot, because online allows you to do so much, right? We can aggregate every piece of information and data that the state produces, every piece that we can do.
State?
Proprietary. Yeah, we work with all the state agencies.
And the states publish a lot of this information. Well, they publish this information, but let me jump in real quick. So someone that moved from the South, where there's no elk hunting or draw points or whatever, you just go buy a license. And moving to Washington State, it's like, hell yeah, man. I'm going to be a Western hunter now. I'm going to go hunt elk and do all these cool things. And then you start digging into how that works. And if you don't have any experience, it is very, very complicated.
It is.
And it is annoying as shit because you're dealing with a government agency who I'm very grateful for what they do, conservation and stuff. But
they don't move like a private business.
They don't go out of their way to make it easy.
No, I'm well. Like when I pulled my elk tag last year in Utah, I mean, I was looking at it and I was like, oh God. But luckily, Jay's assistant was like, I got the paperwork for you, man. I was like, okay, cool.
How does all this work? Like da 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 da. It's like for uninitiated, it is extremely complicated.
It is,
and it's so complicated where you'll be like, fuck this.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people do, is the intimidation of it. And that's where a lot of the idea was
hire an outfitter and do this, fuck this, I'm not,
But with this DIY trend of people like wanting the experience, wanting to do it for themselves, you're wanting to find the information all the way through the hard work, feet on the ground, getting the animal off the mountain and cooking it back in their barbecue. Like that's what we provide, is that experience all the way through. And like Baker's saying, I mean, these states have made it so fucking complicated for somebody to understand who isn't around it on a daily basis, if they're not from the West, if they don't quite understand these little networks and how they work, I mean, they have done themselves no favors. The states have done themselves no favors on making it easy.
Substantial amount of time to understand how the process works. Now the silver lining for that is, if you can figure out how the states work and all that stuff, I think you will be a more educated,
for sure,
and learned hunter. But man, there's no shortcuts. Like
here's our thing. If you use our product correctly, which it's Go Hunt Insider is what we've branded this data aggregation side of it, because we have a content side and some other things that just helps general marketing. But this insider side, this data and information aggregation of all these states with our proprietary ways of filtering down what fits your criteria and what you want to know. If you use it correctly, you will go hunting every single year, no question about it.
So is it like a annual fee that you pay to use the site?
Yeah, so it's $149 a year.
It's not bad.
No.
I like you said it. The analogy earlier was like it's similar to like Zillow, and I think that's good for
somebody who isn't involved in hunting or around it at all. It's the best way you can explain it is it's Zillow meets Cars.com meets Ancestry.com.
And for all the older listeners, I'm 42. The older listeners, this is what we would refer to as Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes.
It's before Zillow was invented.
Yeah. I'm just happy he used do it yourself in relating to hunting rather than like HGTV, because it's I only hear it. Do it yourself. You can do your own kitchen. He's like, no, go out there and kill your own animal.
That's one of the things about Lorenzo, and this is something David, the producer of the show, Dave and I were talking last night. Lorenzo's story is really, really interesting, and it's it's hard. I was like, how am I going to tell this story without how am I going to do it the right way? And it's like, well, fuck it, I'm just going to get into it. So Lorenzo has the ability and the means to go out and hunt any animal on the planet with any outfitter and literally stroke a check and do whatever the hell he wants. He has that ability based on his family background and stuff and his success and whatnot. But Lorenzo is obsessed with do-it-yourself, over-the-counter, no guide, just Lorenzo and a camera guy, usually by the name of Mather.
Yeah, that's who it is.
He's obsessed with do-it-yourself. Like, I'm not paying for this deer. I'm going to go do it myself.
You're born and raised in Las Vegas, like you said.
Yep.
What gets the local Vegas guy into hunting this much?
So it's my father's side of the family. And how that works is my father's dad and my father's dad's brother also had a son. So my dad and his first cousin grew up as brothers. His name's Heath Sartini.
They're Italian, for those of you that don't pick up on that.
Yeah. Actually, we came over from the boat, landed in the San Joaquin Valley in California. We're farmers, worked our way up into owning some land, and that's kind of how the family started on the West Coast and infiltrated Nevada, Utah, all this other stuff. So, but my Uncle Heath, he moved to Utah with his dad. His dad was a professional baseball player. Could not stand being told what to do. Told all the coaches to go fuck themselves. He was done playing baseball, so he moved to Utah. Started a tire and axle refurbishing business.
Okay.
Based it in California, in Orange County, California, and had property in Utah, which is where he wanted to raise his family. So my Uncle Heath grew up in California, or in Utah. Sorry, and his dad was going back and forth from California working. He ended up passing away from cancer at 38 years old. So my uncle took the company over very, very early, and my dad is 10 years older than my uncle, so he helped out with the whole process of taking it over. But long story short, that put the roots in Utah, and my great uncle he bought some property in Utah, and we just kind of expanded on that as the family, came to some means of income to buy some land, and it just kind of grew from there. So the hunting side comes from my dad's side, my Uncle Heath, and they just started hunting Utah in the general seasons every year. And then obviously me and my cousin took it to an entirely new level.
When I hear Lorenzo, I immediately go in Vegas about the UFC. Is that part of your family?
That's my mother's side of the family.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, both sides of the family are make good decisions.
Let's hope I just got like 10% of what both sides of the families were able to create. Let's just hope.
Well, it sounds phenomenal, just starting from nothing and kind of building an empire. And if people don't know, like the UFC, they always think Dana White. Dana White's the president, but he wasn't necessarily the financial and business backing of it. Yeah. He took over more of the marketing and the face of it after. And if you want to speak on that,
yeah.
Be great.
So Dana, I mean, the story has been exploited quite a bit now that Dana is who he is. He's a phenomenal guy. He's been around my life since I was born, literally. He was my uncle's best friend back when my Uncle Lorenzo's best friend back in the day, back when I was just a little kid. And Dana was boxing training my mom, my Aunt Teresa, which is my Uncle Lorenzo's wife, my Aunt Jill, which is my Uncle Frank's wife. I mean, he was just a normal guy in town, loved my Uncle Lorenzo, was around what we called Fertitta Enterprises, because before UFC, how my family had the money to start it was my grandfather started Bingo Palace, which is now Palace Station. It's right up there on Sahara. I don't know if you guys have seen it, right off the I-15. But so my grandfather started Bingo Palace, which was the first locals gaming. He was a bellman down at the El Cortez. He was a bellman down there.
Like a guy that like answered the door,
literally running bags back and forth.
That's awesome.
And
that is so badass.
Part of the job description was you couldn't gamble on site, which is completely stupid because you would have your employees giving back their paychecks, right? Which is a beautiful thing. But back
Company
then,
store, that's illegal.
Back then you couldn't do it. So my grandfather was like, you know what, this is a huge problem because all the people that work here, they want to gamble, but they don't want to have to come down to the strip to do it.
Right.
And the outskirts of Vegas back then was Sahara and I-15. So he built Bingo Palace, which was a bingo house because bingo brought all the ladies who would sit at the casino all day long and play bingo. Well, when the bingo games would get out for an hour, they'd go out and play the slot machines. And that's where he'd make all of his money. And then he'd run another bingo game an hour later. Then they'd go back out to the slot machines and another bingo game and so on and so forth. And it kept the locals in his casino. Well, he did that for a while. And then as my Uncle Frank, which is the oldest underneath my mom, and my dad took over Bingo Palace and brought it to Palace Station and then took 1 casinos to 8 casinos within the valley and named it Station Casinos.
Okay.
Went public in 1999, which basically gave my family the opportunity to buy the UFC for $2 million, which,
What year did they buy the UFC?
It's early 2000s. I can't remember exactly what it was. 01 or 02, 03.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there.
I can't remember exactly the time frame. I was pretty young. I mean, that's
when they bought the UFC. Where was it at? Was it like UFC 7 or so? I don't know.
I can't remember the number. The story that
UFC 2 that was my freshman year of college. I remember sitting with all my football teammates in our athletic dorm and we watched UFC 2. Mm-hmm. It was Pat Smith elbowed the ninjutsu guy in the mouth, and his red mouthpiece popped out of his mouth, and I thought it was his teeth, and I went, "Oh shit!" That was 1990. That was 94.
Yeah, I can't remember what
Well,
show
around that
number
time
they
frame,
were at,
yeah.
but it was early 2000s. I was young, and they bought it for $2 million, and this story's out there too. But they bought it. They didn't even have the name UFC. Like they thought they did, but they didn't. So then Dana White had to go out there and bulldog all these people, all these license deals, all these things out there to rein back the UFC name. So they had it, and they were the only ones that had it.
So was it like with regards to copy or trademarking it? Was the name UFC heading towards like generification?
Oh yeah, it was licensed to everyone under the sun, basically. I mean, it had no real strength to the name because some guy running a show in his backyard back then could have used it, and so could have my uncles that just paid $2 million for a production company.
Right.
Wow.
So you have to basically defend your trademark.
Yeah. So he had to go out there.
Send a letter to every single person because what happens is if you're not defending your trademark, it will then become generic. So CrossFit, for example, Greg Glassman has had to go after people.
Oh yeah,
viciously for using the term incorrect.
And here's
just
the
for
thing
sake
too.
Of defending it.
Here's the thing too. When somebody says no, I'm not going to stop. What do? You got to go after them then, and it costs you money. Costs you a lot of money.
100%. Yeah, they just say no, and then it's like, cool, my lawyer will talk to your lawyer, and then
we'll both
cost
make money.
everybody. You got 15 of those going on.
Costs
with
everybody money.
Yeah, it's not fun for anybody.
And back then, my family, my dad, my 2 uncles, they were fairly young. They were all under 40, and
all
under 40, and they made a very good amount of money, became successful, worked their absolute balls off. I mean, there's no question about that, and I know that's kind of what everybody says, but honestly, my family never stopped working. It was just a constant grind. My family did not have friends. We had Sunday dinner, and that was the only time we saw each other. The rest of the time, right after Sunday dinner, really, they'd all go back to work.
Sounds familiar.
I mean, it's crazy.
The fascinating thing for me with the UFC was just it was such an unproven concept where it's not like, hey, we're mirroring successes of businesses that are pre-existing, whereas there's professional sports and all of that, but it was such a niche thing back there where
it really was.
Yeah, I mean, American culture in the early 2000s, this will never be popular. It's too violent. There's no rules. It's barbaric. This is disgusting.
John McCain called it human cockfight. You had politicians going after it.
You had politicians going after it.
That's when my uncles owned it. And think about this though. When my family bought it, we come from a wildly Catholic Italian family. And my grandfather
professional Catholics.
Before he passed away in 2009, but he's kind of the patriarch of the entire family. He took over our entire family. Sunday night dinners were always at his house, same time, same place. If you missed it, you were out of the family basically. Like you had no choice, you know? And he did not agree with the violent sports. He just didn't agree with it. But it's just like, you know, anybody growing up underneath their father or underneath their family, they have an issue with their parents usually have an issue with the younger way of thinking or like the edgier way. And
slower to evolve.
Yeah, it just seems like every generation just gets edgier and edgier, and things get more accepted and more accepted, and things are getting more, you know, on the social side more liberal. And you know, we didn't see my parents and my uncles didn't see an issue with being in violent sports. Well, it was an issue. Every Sunday dinner, it was, you mother, what? Why are we in this sport? Like, I can't believe my family's name got drug into this violent sport.
That man was bleeding.
Yeah. Like, it was just, back then, for whatever reason, boxing had that allure of it. It was an art. It was a sport. And Muhammad Ali had a lot to do with that, of, you know, bringing the showmanship to it.
And there's in boxing, there's drawn out strategy over a series of rounds.
Well, yeah, you focus more on technicality and a defined sport rather than, at least back then, UFC. Because I mean, I just like, how old are you?
I'm just turned 30, actually.
Okay, so we're pretty much the same age. But you know, growing up in that, at our age, was like, boxing was more of a sport. This was like cockfighting, we were saying. So it was like completely frowned upon. I remember my dad was just like, he was a big boxing fan. He was like, who would ever watch this? This is disgusting. You can hit people with elbows. You might as well be in the ghetto fighting over. And that's how
you might as well be in a street fight with no rules. But there's a ton of rules to UFC.
But back then it was Valley Tudo, man. Like anything goes. Like I remember
before my uncles bought it. Yes, the first thing they did when they bought it was put rules in. It's the very first thing they did.
Yeah, like I remember there was one. I think it was. I don't remember who it was, but like the dude was just punching the little Asian guy right.
Well, there was even no weight classes before they bought it. I mean, you could have a 150-pound guy fighting a 230-pound guy.
Which is so crazy to see the sport, because everybody thinks UFC, but even, I mean, pretty much until the acquisition of the UFC, they were coming out with new rules. Like, I mean, females just started fighting, what is this, 3-4 years ago? Yeah. I mean, the sport is evolving still.
That was a whole nother conversation with my grandmother.
Really?
They allowed females to start fighting.
Like,
but you watch the evolution of
wildly against it.
But watch the evolution of the females in the space.
Oh, of course.
Ronda Rousey. Like, it's like, God, no one's ever going to beat her. And now it's like, good God, like, I don't know that she could, you know.
Well, I think you see the same things with like the female division as the male division, right? You had the guy that was just innately tough with a very, very, very hard skill set in one discipline, cleaning house, and then you had the new technical guys like the John Jones come around, like, oh, he's just great at everything. I think that was like the Ronda Rousey, where like unmatched judo skills, tough as nails, and then you start having like the Amanda Nunes that come in and like, oh, she can wrestle, she can, you know, practice jiu-jitsu, she's an amazing kickboxer.
Yeah.
So
punches and bunches, man.
Like crazy. Yeah. Unbelievable.
I would not want to find any of those girls and put that out there.
No,
it's a bad road.
It's actually fun too, because like when I was in college, I went to college at University of Montana. When I was up there, I was in college between 2006 and 2010, and that was, you know, UFC was on a mad tear back then, and we used to talk about my senior years, basically when they were starting to think about having girls fight, right around the 2010 time. And my buddies would always joke around, like they would think they could beat up girls. I'm like, you guys have no clue what you're talking about.
No,
it all comes down to technique. It all comes down to like knowing what you're going to do. What are you going to do against, you know, and we still get in the conversation all the time. What would you ever do against Ronda Rousey? She'd throw a kick and you wouldn't know what to do.
Well, that's just like the ego thing. Back. I say it all the time. It's just like the alpha male ego thing, because even a guy like me, you know, former special operations background, I've kind of fought a lot through my whole life. You know, stepping into a pro gym, there's in the back of your head, you're like, man, I can fuck these pro guys up probably. Yeah. And then you just eat a giant humble sandwich and realize that you're a pussy compared to them, and they could probably beat you up with their arms behind your back. You're like, that's what getting bullied feels like. And it is a weird feeling. And that's why a lot of guys will come in the gym, get beat up one day, like, I'm good. Yep. Where it's like I had to really work through that in my head when I'd have people just sitting on me like I was a child and I couldn't move. And I'm like, but I'm 220 pounds and this and that. Yeah. But once you work through that, you're like, okay, I can get better. I can start to learn.
Exactly.
When Matt and I first became friends a few years ago, one of the coolest things I've ever seen you do on social media, and you've done a lot of cool shit. You posted a photo of, I think it was you and maybe Josh. and like it was like a four photo frame thing, and like you see Matt, and then it kind of zooms in on him, and you see this facial expression of confusion, frustration, fatigue, and just very humbling. It's like, damn, man, like he's throwing it out there, like literally got tied up in a pretzel by a dude, you know, half his size, and it's just like,
he's a 45 or he's a Bellator fighter.
Yeah.
But
what's his name?
Josh Tyler. He doesn't fight in Bellator anymore.
Oh,
he's a great little dude.
He's an awesome human.
But man, I think that's the training MMA, like you said, it's good for you because you said it humbles you.
For sure, definitely.
Do you get in there like Kit Cope's wife? Like when she's trained at the gym, that girl is nasty. She's a pro boxer, and I'm like, nope,
Mexican chick.
Yeah,
Mexican boxer.
It's unbelievable.
But UFC, going to UFC, and like you were saying, like your grandfather was like, no, don't do that, and you guys, they had to fund it.
Yeah. So a lot of
that earlier.
The story out there is, they bought it for $2 million and sold it for $2.4 billion.
Never had to put another dime in it. It's all profit.
It's not the case. Right. I mean, they put in $2 million of this thing, which, I mean, that is a lot of money. I don't care who you are. You're writing a check for $2 million. That's a shitload of money.
You're getting a call from the accountant.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, right? Yeah. And like I said, you're buying a production company. Production companies take money to run, right? There's some companies out there. I love online technology because you can pad the expenses pretty good. When you buy something in operation, a production company, things cost money to do. Like you can't put on a show without paying money, and you got to front the money before you sell the tickets.
Right.
So it's an expensive deal. Well, not only that, they were trying to change so much and put so much money behind it to market it, to get it to mainstream, to show people that they put in weight classes and rules, and you can't manipulate small joints anymore, and you can't kick people when they're grounded in the teeth. All this stuff. They were marketing it so hard, they went from $2 million to $50+ million.
Invested.
And I mean, cash. That's not like T-shirts and stuff.
No, that's cash. And you're not financing that, because what bank's going to finance a company that you bought for $2 million? Then you're in it $10 million. Then you're in it $20 million. A bank's not going to loan you that money. So what happened was,
we're at a really terrible interest rate.
Yeah.
Here's a $10 million loan at 12%.
So what had happened was,
yeah.
They had the station casinos, the casino business. That's where my family's roots are, is in the gaming industry. Like it still is. My father, my uncles, we all still own big casinos here in town. And, the roots have always stayed there. But back in the early 2000s, I mean, the stock market was good. And when you go public with a company like that, you go public, you go out an IPO, and you get a stock price. Call it, for easy math, we'll say $20. Well,
that's what he's talking about. Strike price, $20 a share.
$20 a share, and say each one of them owns 1 million shares, right? So it's $20 million a piece, just for easy round numbers. Well, if you draw on that to fund the UFC, and you draw 1 million shares down to 500,000 shares, and the strike and the price of the stock climbs from 20 to 30, well, you just lost the spread of the money because you just cashed out half your money.
Right.
So you lost the spread.
You're giving up that 10
plus
point gain
what you cashed out.
Yeah, you're giving up the 10-point gain on every share you sell.
Exactly.
You don't get it back.
No, you don't get it back.
You're giving up your equity percentages and
Correct.
ownerships and voting rights.
It's a dangerous game.
Yeah.
It's a very dangerous game, and that's how they had to fund the UFC. It was scary. I mean, it was.
That's high risk for sure.
High risk, and I wish I was older when all this was happening, so I could understand it better and be more savvy with business and understand.
You probably have some gray hairs though.
Yeah. The decisions.
Whose side were you on? Did you side?
I mean, I loved it. Because
did you side with your grandfather or your dad and your uncles?
I was with my uncles, with my dad and my uncles, because think about it. I'm 12, 13, 14 years old. Carmen Electra is the spokeswoman. I get to hang out with Carmen Electra in New York in her hotel room. I'm playing football in middle school and in high school, but I'm hanging out with Carlos Newton and Matt Hughes and Chuck Liddell and all these guys in the gym all the time. Forrest Griffin, like, of course but I didn't understand the money side of it, obviously, But as a kid, I was starstruck by it. An entertainment business is one of the coolest businesses on the planet because of the people you get to be with, the energy behind it, and especially fighting. I mean, there's no energy like fighting. We all know that. That's why, think about it. Anytime a fight breaks out, middle school, high school, in the middle of nowhere, what happens? People surround it and watch and chant and cheer, and it's the
tribe mentality.
It's a release of emotions for people who aren't even in the fight. It's an emotional thing.
No, they're very invested. I still at this age get fucking nervous when I watch big fights because I'm like really rooting for my guy, and I'm like, ah.
So I obviously sided with my uncles, but I mean, Not to, share too much of the in-depth story so I get in trouble, but I mean, I can vividly remember sitting around my grandfather's dinner table, Sunday night dinner, and it came down to the last bit, we only have so much more money to fund this thing. And we basically went around the table, my grandfather did, and we took a vote of if we were going to stay in the UFC or not.
Were voices getting elevated and stuff, or was it like peaceful conversation?
When my grandfather spoke, it was always calm. Always. Okay. I mean, when he spoke, you shut up and you listened. That was just who he was. I mean, I can't say it enough. The people who have helped him in his career can say it, but he is the most charismatic, powerful, nicest guy on the planet was before he passed away. And he was just one of those guys. So no matter how big of a personality you were or how successful you were, when he talked, everybody shut up. He was just one of those guys. So he went around, we all took a vote, and basically my Uncle Lorenzo was like, no, I'm staying in. So
it wasn't like an Italian dinner like you see in the movies and like people are yelling and talking with their hands.
It was before my grandfather spoke.
Okay.
Before my grandfather brought down the hammer and said,
so he's a judge ringing the gavel. Clack, 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 ordering.
I think that's a great business takeaway, though, right there, where if, the passion and the personal emotional investment into an idea to make it work, and now they weren't blindly throwing money at it, but, you have essentially your family, your friends, your mentors telling you, this is a fucking black hole. Don't waste your money. Be smart. You can probably have the financial means for financial independence for the rest of your life.
And never have to work again.
Fucking do it. But it's like, I believe in this. I'm willing to sacrifice like my hard work and everything. That's really cool.
You have generational wealth.
Absolutely.
Like, why would you absolutely risk that? Like grandkids and great grandkids.
They're all going to go to college. The biggest gift you could give somebody is education. The entire family, all the lineage, everybody's going to college for free at that point, right? Why would you mess that up?
Yeah. No one's wondering if there's money in the debit card when they buy it. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Another thing, it's not just go hunt. That's your business and your family. In the casinos and the UFC and all that stuff. Like you guys have done a ton of other stuff too. And Matt, have you ever heard of Dippin' Dots?
I have not.
You don't know Dippin' Dots ice cream?
Look, the look that Dave just.
I know Dave
killer.
You don't know Dippin' Dots ice cream?
I don't eat ice cream. I'm sorry. I'm getting yelled at by other fat kids over here, man.
The two fat kids. Dave Reardon just gave Matt a look of absolute disgust because he wasn't familiar with Dippin' Dots. But you guys owned the patent on Dippin' Dots.
Well, so Dippin' Dots.
I have to Google this.
Since you don't know it, I don't know how to explain it to you. But so the thing with Dippin' Dots is it had to be held below the temperature of what a conventional freezer could hold within your house,
conventional
right?
Freezer is what, 32 degrees? 36 degrees.
I think a freezer can go down to, I think, -5. It was a while ago when we did this. We sold it a while ago, but so I can't remember the exact details. But Dippin' Dots had to be held in a like commercial freezer that had to be below -30 to hold the ball ice cream. Because if it got any warmer than that, the balls would melt into each other and it would just become normal ice cream.
Little balls in them? Is that
It's just little balled ice cream. It's phenomenal. It's like the best ice cream on the planet. But you could only get them, like growing up in Las Vegas, the only place I could ever get them was Wet n Wild, because you had to go to these places that had these commercial deep freezers that could hold this ice cream at like this wildly low temperature. Well, my dad...
So it's literally just like tiny little balls of ice cream. This is it, right?
Little flavor balls.
Okay,
so we were the...
I'm going to get eaten up on comments on this one.
We were the competitor to that. So my dad... I'll fast forward just a little bit to make it make sense. But after Station Casinos went public in 1999, my dad cashed out of Station Casinos, bought his own company called Golden Gaming, which is a bunch of bars and taverns in town. We own 60 taverns here in town.
How many slot machines do you own?
22,000 throughout the state of Nevada, 14,000 throughout the state of Montana. We own the Stratosphere. We own 3 casinos in Pahrump, and then 2 properties in Laughlin, Nevada. So my family is wildly into gaming, but we have just this wild entrepreneurial spirit, And back when all that was going on, my dad had found this patent out of Canada that could do pelletized ice cream, but could be held in a house freezer. And my dad bought the patent and named it Molecules. So, ice cream's got to go towards the kids. So we named it Molecules.
It's a clever name.
It is.
It's punny.
Throwing a little science out there.
Yeah.
Too, yeah.
So we were basically the competitor to Dippin' Dots, and Dippin' Dots was freaking out because, I mean, they had the market and this commercial side, but they never were able to get into, the housing side, the residential side. So we had this patent, and we had it for a while. We had to deal with, getting on shelves and getting the shelf space in Walmart and all these other big time retail stores, big box retail stores. We had to go through that process. We learned a ton there. We had to deal with distribution, because if you come out with a new ice cream, if you don't have your own distribution, Haagen-Dazs, Dole, all these guys are going to shut you down.
Oh, it's a monopoly.
They'll shut you down. They'll say, okay, great, you have an ice cream and you want to get into Walmart, but you can't use our trucks. Can't we'll tell whatever trucking company we're using, like, hey, we're going to pull our $1 billion deal with you if you
not to go
sell
too
their ice cream.
sidetrack, but the commercial grocery business is fucking savage. I mean, the point where
it's the most savage.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Like if you put, let's just hypothetically, like I were to put our coffee in a grocery, which we will eventually. What they'll do is like, oh, that's moving pretty well. Yeah. We're going to copy the bag, relabel something very similar. Oh, by the way, since we own the production, we can also move the shelf space. We'll throw Black Rifle coffee here down on the bottom, and now Black Pistol coffee that they just stole from us is now that's right in front of the customer. So it's savage.
It is the most savage there is. It's unbelievable.
But then to take it a step further, with my background in the drink business, your competitors, and I've seen this with my own eyes, your competitors will come in and reset shelves and literally take your product and put it in the bottom.
100%.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's 100%. Just like, how is y'all have cameras? This is not cool. But we drink company that I helped start, our first big order, we had 2 18-wheelers going to a distributor in South Carolina. I think it was like a $92,000 order, something like that. And at that time, that was like, we're going to have a Ferrari one day. I'm going to have a private jet. Like, we made it. 2 18-wheelers of drinks going to South Carolina. Like, it was monstrous for us, like a year and a half old. And all of a sudden, we get a call from, I think it was like two brothers distributing in South Carolina. We get a call, and they're like, yeah, we're turning the trucks back. We're like, wait, what are you talking about? Well, they happen to be the largest distributor of Red Bull in the state of South Carolina.
Oh, yeah. Shut it down.
25 mil a year. Red Bull said, turn the trucks around or game over.
Yeah.
And like that just...
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I mean, that happens in the liquor business, like the alcohol company that we own. Same thing. Anonymous call from Jack Daniels shut down distribution channel with one of the largest ones in Texas. And so we went from having a massive account to nothing the next day. So, yeah.
And that's the hard part about those businesses is when you're going to have to rely on some third-party distribution. Distribution's the hardest thing. If you are making a hard good, a consumable product, something like that, you're going to have to rely on distribution.
And And so everyone listening to this right now, that's a good point, because I think, and you said copying success and UFC being a pioneer and whatnot earlier, a lot of people, looking for jobs or career paths or whatnot, like you look at the Matt Bests of the world and the Evans and the JTs and what those guys do, it's awesome, and it's really cool to aspire to be like them or want to imitate what they do. But in my opinion, the most important component to a business is your operations.
No question about it.
And it's not sexy, and it's not in front of the camera, and no one talks about it. But if a business does not have a successful operational platform, it will not work.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at the only struggles you guys have ever really had is had some, operations or delivery issues, and those things like set the fire alarms
because
off.
it's just like we're talking about here, relying on a third-party distribution mechanism, it takes control out of your hands. So even like look at USPS or something. So if you have great quality product, great packaging, great brand customer experience, and then it's that high five to USPS. Hey, now the last component is to get this to the customer in a timely manner so they get the product. Well, they're 7 days late in the delivery. Fuck Black Rifle Coffee. And it's like, how do you hold them accountable? They don't fucking care. You know what I'm saying?
Not at all. They get their money either way.
Absolutely.
And so anyone listening, man, that's in like a support role in the military and whatnot, like just because it's not a sexy, like trigger pulling, door kicking, type guy, like the value to decision makers, guys like Lorenzo and his family, and guys like Matt and Evan Hafer, like people that make decisions and have the ability to sign checks and whatnot, put a massive value on having that skill set. So anybody listening that has that skill set, like be happy, because it is the most important thing out there.
No
Hands
question.
down.
No question. And I thank my lucky stars every single day. I lay my head down at night on my pillow going to bed that I cannot believe the situation that I'm in, the situation I've created for myself. And the situation for myself, a lot of it is because I was raised that way. You know, I didn't have a choice. I was going into the office with my dad, even, you know, hopefully the statute of limitations is passed because I was underage, but I'd go in there with him and he'd tell me, it's casino business, obviously. And he'd tell me, you know, look, the only way you can run a business, it's not fun and it's not sexy. The only way you can do it, you have to go line by line, day by day and check everything.
Follow the rules.
Every
follow
single thing. And he was saying, he would even bring up the example, you know, if we order 30 pounds of more chuck steak for our cafe, we're going to get a $3 break. Do you know what that equates to over the long run between 7 different casinos? And then you do the math and you're like, holy shit. Like, it is all about those small wins all along the way through your operations that lead to the big picture.
But also, to add on to that, those small little things that are successes are also the things that will sink you. Those little blind items, those are budget busters.
Absolutely.
They will hammer you. And you're talking about working at an early age, dude. So my family, we have a commercial real estate business in Savannah, Georgia, and shopping centers and whatnot. And, dude, when I was a little kid, every Saturday and Sunday morning, I get a call from my grandfather. Normally on Sunday morning, he's like, do you want to make some money today? Yes, sir. He'd come pick me up and drive me to the shopping centers. And I was anywhere from 10 to 12 years old. And I'd be walking around picking up cigarette butts, trash, and beer bottles.
Yeah.
I bet you I've picked
Finish off the beer bottles. I feel like that's what, you know.
They were all empty. This is the South, man. They don't waste beer.
Yeah, they don't waste it.
No, but it's like you said. Like I with my grandfather. Like my grandfather died 2 years ago at 98 years old, and he was walking to his car to go to work to his office, and took a digger and like just. But listen, I mean that sounds terrible to say, but like if he had to write his own story, that's how he'd want to go out.
For sure. That's how my family's going to go out. I have no doubt in my mind. Going to work.
We had Bill Foley on this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Who's the owner of the Golden Knights. And we were just like, hey, is retirement ever going to be an option for you? And he goes, I figure if my retirement's 6 feet under the ground. And it's just like that.
That's that mentality.
And that's why you see, and it's very... it happens a lot. You see with hyper successful people because that they are willing to go through the business, like pull up the rocks, look under them, see what's all fucked up. Because the people that don't really care and put half-ass business, you're never going to be successful like your family. And it's
exactly. And
so
that's
what happened to the ice cream. I want to know.
So we ended up dealing with the distribution deals and all this bullshit, right? I mean, you guys obviously know it probably better than us because you're living it now instead of back then. But I mean, we just got kind of tired of dealing with this distribution model, and we knew we had something that other people wanted, something that they were scared of. That's why they were shutting us down through the distribution. We had something that was going to revolutionize this ice cream world, right? The other thing we had too is we'd make these like half-made milkshakes. So you'd buy these, it was about the size of a water bottle. It was filled a third of the way with a specific flavor of ice cream. All you had to do was go home, pour a cup of milk into it, shake it, and it was like the most delicious milkshake you've ever had in your life. Like literally.
That's awesome.
It was unbelievable. And it was really good for, active people too, because we made some with protein. You made some with, healthy things. Like you made smoothie type ones, all this stuff.
Nice.
So we knew we had something that people were scared of. That's why we were getting shut down in the distribution models.
So you went up to them, hey guys, want to buy us?
Long story short, we said, hey, Dole, do you want to buy molecules? And that's what we did.
Did they just jump at the opportunity?
Yeah.
I imagine because they probably lower all your margins this second the acquisition.
And think about their distribution.
Yeah.
Overnight they'd be in every Walmart on the planet.
They call it the button pushing theory. Like, and I think that's one of the things that like Matt and Evan have been so freaking successful at is like, no matter what space you're in, there's always little buttons that you can push that open things up. And once you figure out what the key, in my opinion, is finding what's the button.
Yeah.
And so like a company like that buys molecules, like they're literally the next day or during the due diligence phase.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's all set up. The day the acquisition closes, the next day it's on the trucks going into the store.
Oh yeah,
And
they're doing the financial audit and they're already fucking poising up for.
Well, here's what happens.
If these casino gambling dudes can do this shit, like think about what we're capable of
and
doing.
the thing too is when you're in a like business, so gaming to gaming or consumable to consumable, what it comes down to is synergies. It's what everybody talks about when you start acquiring businesses, synergies. You don't need two finance departments. You don't need two operation departments. You don't need two HR departments. You don't need two of everything, right? So you can look at a business and say, okay, if I pay X tomorrow, I can rip X amount out of the business because I don't need two of everything. Yeah, I'm going to need to bring on some more operations people to, justify and run what I just bought, but I don't need the accounting side. I don't need the HR side. I don't need all this stuff. And I have a bigger multiple than them because my distribution's better. My income's better. All these things are better, so they can justify these acquisitions like it's nothing.
And you look at holding companies. I mean, that's what they do. Like Jab Holding Company.
Yeah.
I mean, Krispy Kreme, like fucking 9 coffee companies that they own because they can essentially have central roasting, central distribution, and then they can lower margins and everything. So when they go in and look at like an EBITDA, they know during an acquisition they can probably double that in just a year based off of no growth in the company, but
just the
lowering
synergy
margins.
of what they have.
And exactly.
It's actually interesting to watch those types of stories too unfold. Where my drink company, when we were 2.5 years old, Tyson Foods, I got my first auto order customer. I did not know this. What ran business development for Tyson Foods, $36 billion a year in sales.
Holy shit.
And I was like, Ken and I were just kind of texting, chatting and stuff. And he's like, we really would like to talk to you guys. I was like, who's we? He's like, Tyson Foods. And I was like, you mean like chicken type, like big ass Tyson? He's like, yeah, we want to fly you guys out here. I don't think I let him finish the call. I think I hung up, called Todd, and I was like, motherfucker, I think I just sold the company to Tyson Foods. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. But, I mean, I was freaking out. And they flew us out there, and what happens with companies, you're talking about holding companies like a Tyson Foods, they sell, Tyson Foods slaughters 1.2 million chickens a week, 198,000 head of cattle, and 397,000 hogs. That's a week, okay? That's a lot of employees that you kill.
Wow.
And then
That's a lot of employees.
That's a lot of blood.
Yeah. So what happens is they basically maxed out the protein sector in the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Okay. They can only sell so much chicken and beef and pork.
Damn vegans, they need to eat more meat.
Exactly.
I agree.
So what they do is they start going around, and you said synergy. They go around and they start buying up because they can only grow their bottom line by a fraction of a percent at this point.
Correct.
So they go out and they start buying up other companies that are in the same grocery store or hopefully the same aisle, and they can start expanding. Like Tyson Foods went out and bought a bunch of tortilla
There's
companies.
literally, when you go to a grocery store, there's probably 4 companies that own
the entire thing.
in there. I think it's like
100%.
3 or 4, and Tyson's one of them. But
Yeah.
it's scary. You're like, look at all these. I'll choose this cereal over this cereal. Like it's made in the same fucking factory.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Different logo, same thing.
It's just a different name.
The most humbling thing in business for me, I'm kind of getting off track here,
No,
but it was
I
like
like hearing this, man.
when you look at products and you see the customer engagement. It's why I'm the chief branding officer of Black Rifle, because I love what branding does for the emotional experience of a customer, because it's the same fucking thing half the time. And granted, we treat coffee completely different because we roast that shit amazing. But when like grocery stores and the lower end commercial grade products, it's almost it comes from the same thing. Like you go into these massive commercial roasters, they're roasting Starbucks, they're roasting Dunkin' Donuts,
All
they're
at the
roasting
same temperature.
Oh, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they crank it to let's burn your coffee to taste like shit, throw some nitrogen in it, throw it on the shelf.
Yeah.
But then the customer engages with each brand completely different.
Right.
So the lesson that I was taught from my uncles with the UFC is the brand always wins. It doesn't matter what your product is, the brand always
it's like
wins.
location in real estate.
Yep, it's the brand. Like it's all about the brand. If you have consumers out there that can identify with the brand and feel good about supporting that brand, know who they're supporting, know what it's going towards, like that's what's going to win overall. That's what's going to make them choose you over somebody else, And
that's a cool thing with like Matt, Matt Best 11X is it is a brand. It's a brand. And then you have Black Rifle, and like I think that's one of the things that you do really, really well is you are so controlling, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, controlling of how that brand is put out there and how it is perceived. You know, like, and I think that most people don't understand
you have
that.
to, because like if you talk to really from what I've gathered, very successful people, it's like what matters most in business? The customer. You don't have a fucking business if you don't have a customer. If the customer's not happy. So we put a lot of money into just the customer experience, and we're growing that out a lot, because like when someone opens that box of Black Rifle coffee and they have this emotional response and they're happy, they're smiling, they're texting their buddy, hey fucker, I got my Just Black in before you. Like that's the value I want to create in people's life, not okay, I have a cup of coffee. You want the whole experience from purchasing to receiving to opening, unboxing to roasting the
Getting
coffee.
Getting an email notification your beans are being roasted now.
And then when they drink it, they go, holy shit, this is some awesome coffee. And I think that's applicable to every single business, even the UFC. And
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the unboxing thing, like, that all goes back to Steve Jobs and the telescoping lens packaging and stuff.
Yep.
Dave used to work for us.
Oh, yeah, I mean, perfect example, like the computing power of like a Mac is not that much better than a Windows, but the price point's probably 80% more expensive. But that
brand.
Unboxing, the feeling,
the branding of
the
it.
branding,
So clean.
it's just like
when you close your MacBook, it is I like it, and I will pay. I don't give a shit. I'll pay extra, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They got me.
Well, with Black Rifle too, like to that comment, I've been following Black Rifle for a while. Actually, one of my best friends was on the SEAL team. He was on SEAL Team 3 for a while.
Nice.
I work out with him. He's the one that works out with me and Forrest Griffin all the time. But anyways, with Black Rifle, like if somebody told me right now, even before Black Rifle started, like, hey, I'm going to give you the opportunity to start a coffee business, I'd say, fuck you. No way.
What
like
would my grandfather say? He'd say, you're an idiot. We're not doing this anymore.
How do you expect me to win in coffee right now? Like, what do you want me to do? You got Starbucks. You got all these things, right? Well, Black Rifle is a brand and a media company in coffee as well. So like people have this emotion towards it because you guys won in a completely different way where you didn't let the hipsters win, like I was listening to that podcast that you guys declared war on the hipsters and you guys won, and you did. And that's the way to win in coffee right now, is you had to come out with something that was just wildly different from a brand standpoint.
But we can take it a step further, because even there's, I didn't know this, there's apparently people that don't drink coffee in this country, which I think is weird and a character flaw. But the brand is so strong that there are people that don't drink coffee, but they want to be associated with the brand, so they wear the shirts, so they buy the hats and all that stuff.
The most important thing, too, is people are so into the brand and support the brand, they're willing to listen why your coffee is better. If you didn't have the brand, could you imagine walking down on the street like, hey, I have this coffee, I guarantee you it's better than Starbucks. Okay, how? Well, we do this and roast it better and we do all this stuff. Yeah, okay.
And a lot of that,
I'll just keep going to Starbucks.
Fresh roasted freedom daily.
But now that you have a brand to push that and the media company behind it to push it, people are willing to listen now and believe that, holy shit, this stuff is better. I'll give it a try.
Yeah, and a lot of that I believe in is on Evan. It's like, why as a consumer am I paying $13 for a bag of coffee? I can get one at the grocery store for $8.
Yeah.
It's like, and then defining why you're paying more for a premium product, and then the educational aspect, which we're doing a lot more through the media side, which is like, here's how you drink coffee. Because like a guy like me, before I met Evan, I would always throw just ice cubes in my terrible black coffee, chug that thing down overseas and be like, hey, I'm on my day.
Yeah.
Didn't enjoy it, and now it's like, okay, it's more about actually community and bringing people together every morning, and we talk. So it's
a family thing.
Yeah.
It's like
less about us, more about you, because
well, I'm fascinated by it, but yeah. You guys can fire away with whatever else you want to know, but
all right, let me ask you this. So we know a lot about, we've heard about the successes. What are some of the failures? Like, I know that some of the businesses they've started have gone in the tank. Well, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Has there been any failures?
Because
it sounds like everything you guys touch turns to gold, but surely there's got to be some stuff.
Couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah. The biggest one, online poker. My
How
uncles.
much did y'all lose in that?
Take
a guess.
You don't have to throw a number out.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
8 figures at least.
A lot.
Oh yeah.
For those of you listening, 8 figures is a lot.
I've never had 8 figures.
I don't even know. I don't even know if my phone will register.
And that goes for, just to clarify as well. I sometimes I hesitate.
You're not bragging. Just
sometimes I hesitate because look, I understand I know who I am, what I come from, so I know it's hard to listen to me as opposed to like somebody who's done it. But the other thing too is I've benefited from being around all of this stuff my entire life. I didn't have a choice. I was growing up looking at EBITDA lines and growing up looking at payroll and insurance and all these things my entire life. So I've been well rounded towards it. But I mean, the losses are endless because it takes 10 losses for every one win, and that's just kind of how life goes. And the win is, okay, that didn't work, but what did I learn? Like, what can I take away from that? Okay, I got X'd out by distribution. Like, okay, that wasn't a good enough investment for me. I could have made way more money if I just invested that into the market. But, we had to sell out to Dole because we just couldn't deal with distribution.
Have they ever failed at something and then gone back and tried to do it again differently?
No.
Hell no.
No. Failure is, in our minds, the repetition of failing. Like if you don't make money once, it's not necessarily a failure as long as you can turn around and do something else. Yeah. But online poker for us, my family, so my uncles have a casino company called Red Rock Gaming. My dad and my brother, I have an older brother, run a casino company called Golden Entertainment. They're both publicly traded, both very different businesses, both have 2 different gaming licenses, the whole deal. They're very different. They both lost money on online poker. So it's 8 figures multiplied by 2. So you're talking the high level 8 figures of what was lost in online poker because we went for our license. They went for their license. It was kind of like marijuana. I don't know if you guys remember how it all went down, but it was this gray area, and PokerStars and Full Tilt were running the world with online poker.
Right.
And online poker is always about having games going. So it's about mass use. That's how it works. It's all about mass use. So no matter what time you log on, you can go get a poker game. So as the government shut down, Department of Justice shut down online poker, all these accounts were froze. Full Tilt and PokerStars got put on punishment to like the fullest extent, right? Now,
drop the hammer on them.
Drop the hammer. Now the government's going to go, okay, how are we going to regulate online poker? It was a gaming industry that was not being regulated like we are in brick and mortar properties. So they shut it down. Well, in that, it was a fucking rat race for all of these casinos and all of these things to get their online, what was called an interactive gaming license, because the feds are obviously working with, because they work with, their boards and third parties to figure out how they're going to regulate it. They came up with, you have to have a U.S. gaming license. You have to own 3 casinos with at least so many slot machines, such a big gaming floor, all these prerequisites, right? Well, we qualified, my uncles qualified, Caesars qualified, MGM qualified, all these people qualified, right? But the problem with us is none of us had the technology. None of us had the online platform built for, operating an online poker business. So all of us went out to go find these companies, partypoker.com, 777poker.com, all these people that were operating not necessarily illegally in the U.S., legally, but in the gray area. In the gray area, right? Like the gray areas are fine. It's not like anybody did anything wrong. Nobody was doing anything wrong. They just had to shut it down to figure out how to regulate. Yeah. So it was just an all-out warfare on like people trying to get a deal with each other and get online poker going. Well, I mean, if everyone got crushed because then the feds came out and said it's going to be regulated state by state.
Oh shit.
Well, okay, our gaming license is in Nevada. We have a gaming license in Maryland, but they can't play each other because you have to be within the state confines of Nevada.
The online poker rooms have to be confined by state borders.
To the state. So your IP address, you have to play on an open IP address, and they have to know where you're coming from. Well, Nevada, I mean, shit, we got Las Vegas and Reno.
Yeah, like, who's going to want to play online poker?
So who's going to want to play online poker?
Freaking, you can gamble in a gas station.
It's like Ronald Reagan said, the worst thing you can ever hear in your life is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened. I mean,
we got this figured out.
Harry Reid, he's got an interesting reputation here in Vegas, but Harry Reid did nothing for Nevada when it came to online poker. Took a bunch of money, gave nothing back to help us succeed when all these people were dumping tons of money, having all these job opportunities for online poker, having another revenue source for us. Like Nevada runs off of gaming. Now we have the help of marijuana.
What were they worried about? Was it the ability to tax the money?
Worried about getting money. That's what it all came
down to. Okay, so it basically boiled down to not like a moral thing or this is right, this is wrong. It was we don't know how we're going to get our
cut. Is the government ever moral? They're just looking for money, bro.
If it was federally regulated, the state governments wouldn't get any money. So it just got into this massive, pissing contest of how it was going to be regulated and all these things. Well, everybody lost a shitload of money on it, like badly. Ultimate Poker. Do you guys remember Ultimate Poker? They pushed it through UFC constantly. Yeah. Well, when it went state by state regulation, I mean, it was dead in the water, and that's a failure that you can't see coming. I mean, who would have thought that these states would be hungry enough or call it selfish enough to shut this thing down?
There's those extraneous situations that will,
and that's what it comes down to. Is there is some exterior forces that, on your scorecard, does it look like a failure? Yeah, you lost money. But really, like, is that a failure that the government came in and crushed you? I don't think. I don't think that's
predict
a failure.
it, and you had no control over it. That's two. You need two or three things to fail, and one, not being able to predict something, and two, not being able to control it. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster.
The other big failure too is real estate. I mean, who would have saw the real estate crash in 2008?
We can share stories.
Our family has, we have casino sites around town. We've been dealing in real estate. That's private. When we were privately held, majority of the privately held casinos here in Las Vegas are also real estate companies, because you hold these pads of property that you're potentially going to build a casino on. So you're going to make your money back through the casino. Or if you get a good market cap on it, you just sell it and, make quick money and go buy another pad somewhere else. Who would have saw 2008 coming? So that crushed all the private businesses, the private casinos back then, which we were a private business back then. And then the economy getting crushed. So gaming is the entertainment, but Vegas, if people haven't been to Vegas, I mean, you guys obviously see, gaming is our entertainment. Like, that's it. Yeah. That is our entertainment with the local style casinos to the strip style casinos. That's our entertainment. The very first dollar that goes out the window to be saved, to get pulled out of your property to be saved, is entertainment. So when the market crashed in 2008, you had the real estate problems that you had. Then you had the consumers pulling back all of their spending money, right? Because it's got to go to gas, it's got to go to food, got to go to housing. Yeah. The last dollar that ever came out was entertainment, and we're slot machines. So why would somebody put $1 into our slot machine when they had to put it into, making their life okay? Yeah. But we weathered the storm somehow, and that was purely just nose to the grindstone, cutting budgets, cutting not people, because people make your business as good as it is, right? Especially we're in the service industry, in the casino side.
Y'all take care of your employees?
Very well. Very well.
Good to hear that.
And we have very long tenured people, and that's what's important too. That you can look at a business and say, okay, you have how many people that have been here for 30 years?
Turnover. So if you look at the beverage company, that I used to work for, I mean, the turnover at the higher levels was just nonstop.
Yeah.
And it's just like, one, it looks bad for morale within the company, and two, like external perceptions and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, God, these people have been through, 18 C-level people in the past 5 years.
Exactly.
What's going on over here?
Exactly.
People, familiarity. If you keep things as constant and as consistent as possible, you'll do a lot better.
Exactly.
But you guys, like during the crash of real estate and stuff, like, I'm sure that you guys were, your resources and whatnot, able to find opportunity.
There's always opportunity in destruction. Yeah. Always. When something falls, something has to be rebuilt, and it leaves a lot of room for opportunity. The other thing too is it's that paradigm shift. We were, companies were doing the same things for so long, they just got stuck in their own ways. When all that hit, the recession, the economy, all this stuff, they had to think different, and it bred a lot of creativity out of the gaming market, which was awesome for us, and bred a lot of creativity in a lot of other ways too, just for the state of Nevada, which was great for us. So
where can people check out your stuff for Go Hunt and social and
www.gohunt.com? That's everything is there from the content side. We produce our own content. We produce content with third parties, all these things. Then we have our insider program, which is all that information that's aggregated, data's aggregated, all that stuff on that website as well. Instagram, we're just Go Hunt. And then Facebook, we're gohunt.com as well.
Pretty easy to find. I like it.
It's pretty easy to find. That's the nice thing about online. And, to open up personally a little bit, like, I come from a very great family. I love them to death. I see my dad and my brother every day. Their office is, 500 feet down the road from me. But I very much struggled with being my own person. Like, I always just wanted to be my own person no matter what. And it's hard in an Italian family, first of all, because, you have your Italian mothers and grandmothers, and I love them to death, and I would never want to ever hurt them or, make them mad by any means. But like, it was a struggle to have conversations about like, hey, I love our family business. I love what we do. I love the family.
Start a website to
but
teach people how to hunt?
I want to go to the hunting industry. Like, that's where I feel like I belong. That's where I want to go, and I'm going all in on it.
And just let me throw this out there. I'm a passionate hunter. 2017, I hunted in 11 states. That's my recreation. That's my fun. That's what keeps me sane. The industry as a whole is barbaric and backwards as shit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wanted to fix that.
A whole different level. And I can honestly say that, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and I have nothing to gain by saying this. You said Joe Rogan and Steven Rinella are the two biggest positive influencers in the hunting space. And I agree with that. I think that Steven Rinella is like, he will go down in history as one of the fathers of conservation. Yeah. I mean that. I think what you're doing, you may not realize this because you're sitting looking at it through your eyes, but from the outside, I think that you have the potential with what you're doing to be on that level, making change at that level, but on a different side of the industry. You're not doing Meat Eater TV and all that stuff, but I think what you're doing is also wildly important because the hunting industry is like turning an oil tanker around a 180, and it takes time. But I think what you're doing. So anyone listening, that is interested in hunting or hunting out west, or if you're sitting here and if you're in South Florida and you want to go elk hunting and you just don't know how to do it or whatever, like go check out Go Hunt, check out the site, go through the process, and you will see how actually easy it really is to do.
Exactly.
So he's basically providing access and education for people to do things
that they want to do.
I think just have no clue how it ever works.
Yeah, I think hunting is the purest form of living that you could possibly live, and I think everybody should experience it to a certain extent. So that's kind of what we set out to do.
With an arrow.
Nothing like it.
Well, that's phenomenal, brother. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah,
We'd love to have you back. There's so much to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about.
We'll have to
Hopefully
jump on another one and
on track at least a little bit.
No, it's fantastic,
it's great.
man.
Awesome. Well, thanks for listening to Launch Code, and go check out Go Hunt.
Thanks,
Later.
guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.